cried. And behold, the Canaanite woman from that region came out and cried, Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely possessed by a demon. But Jesus did not answer her a word, and his disciples came and begged him, saying, Send her away, for she is crying after us. Jesus answered, I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But she came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, help me. And Jesus answered, It is not fair to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. She said, Yea, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered her, O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desired. And her daughter was healed at that very hour.
A newspaper article, well, I guess it's not a newspaper article anymore, it's in the palm of my hand, in a little computer. So an internet article about a young man named Ethan who just turned 18. And the dilemma in this man's life right now was that his parents were people who decided not to have Ethan vaccinated. And so as he gets his information as he grows into adulthood, and as he's looking around, he thinks that what his parents did was wrong. And so, he's going to, as an 18-year-old, he was looking for information about what he should do to get himself vaccinated from those diseases that vaccines are purported to help us avoid. And it's just another one of those kinds of examples of how really strange and difficult life in our day and age has become. Because again, what is a parent to do? So on the one hand, we're taught that we ought to be trusting those who are our doctors. On the other hand, we know that there's a lot of money in there. And so, pharmaceutical companies and all those kinds of things. And my guess would be that there's probably even a few of us in here who probably lined up on the side of there being some sort of conspiracy, and that it is the vaccines that have somehow been the cause of a rise and increase in autism and things like that. So we've got some difficult sorts of things, and our real difficulty is that we cannot make life turn out the way we want it to. And so whether it be Ethan or his parents, trying to do the best they could, given the information they had and how they saw things and who they trusted, they made some decisions. And who will say, in most cases, those kinds of decisions are fairly irrelevant, as it won't affect that many of us. But in some cases, what if Ethan gets sick? What if he gets his vaccine and then something happens? What if he doesn't get his vaccine and something happens? We live as though, we would have made the wrong decision had we had better information. No, we always make exactly the decision that seems right to us. Our dilemma is that we can't know. We just can't know. And so we come to a word when we can't know that we see kind of brought before us as a characteristic of us human beings in the Canaanite woman this morning, who was a very faithful woman. She believed that Jesus was going to be able to do something for her daughter. That Jesus was going to be able to, was in a capacity to be able to have mercy on her. to do something for her to alleviate the situation, the health situation in her family. And so she came crying out to him based on faith. Faith is a difficult thing for us these days, isn't it? Because we don't know what to believe in. Because every option is open to us. Because we can type 2 or 3 words into the internet and get volumes and volumes of all kinds of information, some of which is useful to us, and much of which is just complicating our lives and making things increasingly stressful and causing us great damage, we will probably discover as time unfolds. But this woman showed us a high level of faith. She also showed us a high level of patience. Another thing that we in our generation are probably lacking. I remember 30 years ago when Father Joe would have been leaving and I would have been arriving. I remember buying my first Tandy computer. A Tandy computer, the processor was a 286. Anyone remember 286s? Yeah. And then when these machines, because you had to type in some of your DOS code, and then you waited. And then they started to do what wasn't really multitasking, but they just split the screen. And you could actually go from one program to another program. And you'd wait and wait. And then, inevitably, it would crash. And I would sit there waiting 10, 15 minutes as the machine would reboot. Rebooting used to take a long time. And so, we noticed that, now, if it takes 15 seconds for the darn thing to kind of get up to speed, to be usable, where's my patience? I used to wait 15, 20 minutes just to re-crank that thing up. Patience, another one of those characteristics we see in this woman. And what the two led to, her faith and her patience, led to that great virtue in the Christian life, humility. We will hear in our lifetimes so many things said about humility, which is the most natural state for us human beings in our pristine condition, in the way that we were made. Because in the way that we were made, we would have truly realized that we were not our own makers. And that's the big, let's say, truth, the big fact about us. And that would probably be one that perhaps even Ethan and his parents could agree on. That we had nothing to do, virtually, with our being here. That when we look at all the wonderful things about us human beings, of all the things we can take credit for, all the things we'll put on our resumes, and perhaps even all the things that we will perhaps plead that Jesus understands when we stand before his dread judgment seat about how good we were. Without patience and without a level of faith, we will not ever achieve humility. And so in this morning's lesson of the Canaanite woman, we see her. We see her faithfully come to Christ. We see her persistently beg. And even when she's compared to a dog, which would have been really insulting in her day, even when compared to a dog, it doesn't fluster her at all. She goes with it. She accepts it. She sees it as perhaps even true about her condition, and goes on to say, yes, Lord, but even the dogs get the crumbs. We increasingly, almost week to week, almost minute by minute, see our times becoming darker and deeper in terms of our struggle, especially for the faith part of it. Patience, maybe we could work on. Faith, we can think we're working on, but real hard. How do we get faith? Well, how do we believe anything that we believe? Usually it's by some sort of repetition of something. If we got to be good in terms of our physical culture, we spend time doing repetitions at the gym. If we got smart in whatever professional field we may find ourselves in or however you make your living, even if we're in the trades, we have to know things, and we can get to learn things by repetition. As is always the case in spiritual things, it works the same way. which means that if we truly want to be people of faith, we've got to spend our time contemplating, meditating on, placing our minds on, paying attention to things of our faith. As even if we were born into the Orthodox Christian Church, we were no doubt not sufficiently encouraged to open our Bibles every day. If we were fortunate enough to be raised in a more Western tradition that taught that, it may have been well accepted, but there would have been other things that would have been missed. And so we find that if we are going to yearn for and long for some level of faith, some level of trust in the God who made us, it's going to take, and someone told me this is kind of a bad word and I use it too much, work. You know, and it is one of those fun little things, because what we want to do is retire, right? Retirement used to look like a good thing. I'm not sure that it does anymore, certainly not from where I stand now chronologically. But work is going to be the key. You know, we used to hear, well, what are we doing here today? Anybody know what we're doing here today? What do we call it? The liturgy. And what does liturgy mean? The work of the people. Now, again, it's easy to forget that. It's easy to miss that. It's easy to come here either mindless or thinking that we're here for some other reason. You probably came here knowing, recognizing that, yeah, the choir's going to be working. The priests ought to be working, because the clergy work a day a week at least when they come to church. You know, but this notion of work sometimes is almost antithetical to our way of thinking. We're looking for a time where we can stop working. Yet we know that anything good that has ever come in our lives came because we worked. We've even heard or heard people say that there's nothing quite as satisfying as a good day's work. Honest work. Something that we did that was really good and useful for somebody else. And yet when we hear the word, it's true. We kind of cringe sometimes when someone tells us, you're going to have to work at this. Well, if we're going to grow in faith, and even if we're going to grow in patience, we're going to have to work. There is no other way. And when we put our faith in other ways, including how we pray sometimes. You know, I was talking with a couple people this week about St. Seraphim of Sarov and how impressive his story always is. I forget what month he celebrated in. But it says something about him having come to a place of despair in his life. That he was really going through a hard time. And so he prayed on a rock for 1,000 days. He kneeled on a rock for 1,000 days. Call that work? Yeah, I think so. And I might pray a few times, you know, kind of weekly, begging, hoping for some kind of really superstitious miracle. God, can't you just kind of, you know, wave your wand, do some magic? Well, he has done the magic. All the magic needed for us humans is done. And what it points us toward is, now it's our turn. And so in our time on the planet, from the time of our birth until the time we die, we have the opportunity to do the work that will grow us in faith and in patience and in humility. And if we do not commit ourselves and make decisions about that, nothing good will happen. Because unfortunately, we are wondrously made, and the most wondrous thing about us is our free will. That there is no compulsion to anything that we do. Yes, in any particular life we find ourselves in, yeah, there are things that mitigate that to get into an argument about it. But the bottom line, if you're sitting here today listening to what we pray, we find out that either we agree with that and decide to work with it, or we don't. We notice it and we decide to pay attention to it and work on it, or we don't. And when we don't, we get precisely what we get from doing nothing. We get nothing. So when we look and say, you know, God, why this, why that, why other people, and we have all those questions, to which St. Anthony, in a nice little saying, basically says, mind your own business. It's none of your business. That is God's business. Your business is to do your work. as God does his. So we're headed for what will be one of those work periods. We're also trying to look and see what kind of little tweaking we might do or opportunities we might give to each other. Because in a world as free as ours is, with every opportunity for every kind of insanity to come forth, just as every kind of goodness may come forth, if we're not directing ourselves, aiming ourselves, the culture will not do it for us. You've heard me say many times. We are not the beneficiaries of just being able to go with the wave of what we might call social living. That those days are done for us. If we're going to somehow come to a place of love and peace and joy in our lives, it's going to be through work. So let us pray that as we begin these weeks of preparation, this is, as we hear of the Canaanite woman, one of those that starts to let us know that Lent can't be too far down the road. As we hear these words, let us pray that we will begin to think about it now, as we see opportunities in our bulletin come up for refocusing, because we're recognizing now that it's not going to happen just because that's the way life goes in these United States, because it doesn't go that way anymore. That it's time for us to pay attention, make some decisions, do the best we can to commit ourselves to doing the kind of work that's good for us and for each other. Let us pray that God will allow us to change, to open up, to see these things, to take our heads pull our heads out of the sand or other kind of places we may have our heads. And these things to the glory of God and for our salvation. Amen.